Welcome back. It's time to get a business update with Owen. Hello again, Owen. Starting off with a look at the markets. They seem to be shrugging off that downgrade of France.
You'd barely know it's happened, would you, apart from all the acres of newsprint and indeed all the attention we're giving it. But it was all priced in. I would, before we get too carried away, though, look and see what the numbers are like, perhaps over the next couple of weeks. But for the moment, the Asian markets, at least, don't seem overly concerned with what's happening here in the Eurozone. The Nikkei at a healthy-ish 0.8% up, closing the day around that mark. The Hang Seng still trading and having a good day's trade, around 2% up. Everybody worries about Chinese growth all the time, it seems, worried about this economy coming in for some sort of hard landing. It doesn't look that way right now, though. Yes, China's growth is down, but according to official figures, fourth quarter GDP was 8.9%, which looks pretty robust. It does raise questions, though, about how the world's second largest economy now has to now accommodate an urban population that for the first time is outstripping those in the countryside. But we'll get into the details of that a little bit later on in the show.
Moving on now to the Eurozone crisis. Europe's bailout fund will today sell off 1.5 billion euros of debt. It's a modest amount, but the auction takes place only hours after the EFSF followed France with a credit downgrade by Standard & Poor's. The fund is supposed to be big enough to save large economies like Italy, but the loss of AAA status leaves its financial firepower diminished.
The hits keep coming for the Eurozone. Monday's downgrade of Europe's main bailout fund has politicians scrambling to put a positive spin on developments.
There is no uncertainty left about the euro area's capacity to deliver on its promise to provide up to 440 billion euro of conditional support to countries facing severe difficulties if needed.
The European Financial Stability Facility was created to be a lending fund for financially solvent countries to borrow money which they would then give to struggling states. But Friday's downgrade of 9 Eurozone members, including France and Austria, who both lost their precious top-tier ratings, left too few AAA-rated countries contributing to the fund for Standard & Poor's. With the other two ratings agencies still ranking the EFSF as AAA, it still counts as a top-notch investment for most funds. Still, the European Central Bank president says there will be consequences.
And if the FSF wants to keep the AAA status, could either lend less, or if it doesn't keep the AAA status, the cost of lending will go up. Or the alternative is maintain the same level of rating, maintain the same capacity to lend, maintain the same price, but then you have further contributions. You have to have additional contributions from AAA countries.
If other ratings agencies follow suit, the move by Standard & Poor's could further complicate the Eurozone's efforts to emerge from a debt crisis that's gripped the region for more than 2 years.
Just to pick up on that, Claire, it is slightly disingenuous, I find, for some of these EU Commission officials to say that this bailout fund is adequately resourced. Yes, it has around 400 billion euros, but everyone knows that you're going to need around 5 times that amount if you're going to save economies like Italy and Spain together, should the whole sort of euro domino fall down. And at the moment, the problem is you downgrade that fund, you reduce its lending power, and that's the problem. Without the kind of leverage it needs with a AAA status, it simply will fall short every time with the kind of lending capacity it needs right now. Let's let them stew on that one, though, because there are plenty of other issues going on around the Eurozone this Tuesday, not least the arrival once again of the Troika inspectors from the EU, IMF and European Central Bank, who are back in Athens for their latest visit to inspect the books of the government. That happened just hours after Standard & Poor's warned that Greece now will default in only a matter of months. Well, a little earlier, we asked our correspondent in Athens, Natalie Savarakas, whether it really is likely that Greece now will go to the wall.
Well, unless it manages to secure 130 billion worth of aid package, the second aid package, it will have to repay its bonds of 14.4 billion euros worth of bonds in March. And unless it gets the second bailout, it will not be able to pay those bonds. So we are looking at a likely default. However, the European Union and the IMF, and especially Greece, are struggling to counter that. Loukas Papandimos, the Prime Minister, is confident, he says, that the country will be able to overcome now. He is trying to revive talks with the country's private investors and secure a 50% write-down of Greece's debt. And that will eventually trigger the second aid package, which is why the inspectors are here to formulate an economic program for the country for the next few years and secure its viability.
Let's now get a bit more company news. Morgan Stanley is limiting individual bonuses to $125,000 this year. That's according to the Financial Times. It's understood the US investment bank will spread the payouts over 2 years, but limit a deferral rate on cash bonuses to 25%. Morgan Stanley is among US banks being forced to comply with new laws on executive pay. They include clawbacks on bonuses for staff who run up big trading losses.
A recall of Minis that started in the United States has now spread worldwide. Parent company BMW is recalling 235,000 models after an electrical pump fault started fires on North American models. It applies to Minis built between March 2006 and January 2011, and the recall will begin over the next month.
And a panel of lawyers appointed by Olympus has cleared 2 accountants of involvement in the company's huge fraud. Both KPMG and Ernst & Young have been told they weren't to blame for the cover-up of almost $2 billion in losses. Olympus investigators found the fraud had been too well covered up for the firms to have spotted it before it surfaced last year.
Now, a new milestone in China's economic miracle. For the first time in its history, the urban population has overtaken that of those who live in the countryside. It raises questions about how the world's now second largest economy can continue its rampant economic growth and how it intends to feed itself over the next 10 years or so with such a large population shift. Shannon Van Sant reports from Beijing.
Basically, you're just seeing an entire shift. It's the largest mass migration in world history of rural laborers to China's cities. And that shift is going to help China make a crucial shift it has to make at some point in its economy, which is a shift from manufacturing to consumption. That shift is not going to be easy for the economy to make. Chinese government leaders are going to have to walk a real tightrope between stimulus measures and also efforts to boost spending and consumption. So I think how China responds fiscally and in terms of its government policy is just going to be really important.
That was Shannon Van Sant reporting from Beijing. Just time to tell you, and perhaps this fits in nicely with this whole population shift story. Yeah, it's the Chinese New Year approaching. A small cottage industry, but a burgeoning one in China, is rent a boyfriend for the holidays. Lots of anxiety among Chinese who are returning home. Many of them will be returning from the cities back to the countryside, back to their families. Lots of anxiety about not having a man in tow, about maybe not even being married. The solution to that is lots of websites you can see there popping up all over China which advertise a boyfriend who could be capable of breaking the ice with the mother-in-law potentially, or the father-in-law, doing some chores, maybe doing the washing up, maybe even doing a little bit of cooking. I haven't got a figure for you on how much that all costs, I'm afraid. I'll try and find out. But
and what if you can't get hold of the same one for the next visit? Then that brings up a whole other set of questions.
You have to diversify your boyfriend portfolio, I think, is the only answer to that. Yeah, they charge per day, some charge per hour, but you'd like to think you'd get good quality conversation if you've got a per hour charge, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and some will go pretty far just to avoid all those questions from mum and dad, or to stop them nagging anyway. Thanks very much, Owen, for that look at the day's business news, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned to France 24.
Watch all of France 24 on France24.com. It now features more content and is quicker and easier to use. 24 hours a day, wherever you are, visit our website and catch up on all the latest news. Watch the channel in high definition. Pause live TV and watch programs from the past 24 hours at the click of a button. Find our reports, programs and web documentaries in seconds. All of France 24 in French, English and Arabic on France24.com. fascinating and eye-opening trip around the world with Eve Jackson and her guests as they introduce you to cultural events from around the globe, from big hits and famous ventures to young hidden talents. Join her Monday to Thursday, 5:15 p.m. Paris time on France 24. In South Africa, in some places, rape is seen as a cure for being gay. In the last few years, the country's seen an unprecedented wave of sexual attacks on homosexual women. Now, some victims have decided to start talking about it openly in order to put a stop to it. Planet Hope, today, 10:15 a.m. Paris time on France 24.